concept of the universe, Enoch, and so much more, so stay tuned. The concept of religion is greatly outdated. We know that religion has been greatly confining over all of the many eons, really, that it has existed. And it has tried to define something that is rather very undefinable. There really is no way to express the universe or the creator that brought forth everything into existence. And humans don't like to be able to go about their lives without definition. They have to put a name to everything to be able to understand it, because they fear what they don't understand, and therefore they try to have a way to be able to comprehend things. So they give things their own definition, and that's what they've done in religion for centuries. And the truth is that a lot of the teachings came from celestial beings that visited this earth and brought those teachings and their knowledge, because they were greatly advanced, more so than mankind at the time. They brought these teachings with them. But because the people of earth, they could not explain what it was that they were being told, because they hadn't seen it firsthand. So they likened everything to things that they could compare here on earth. Like, for an example, a fiery vortex of energy, they would call a dragon or a serpent. And they would call a sphere of light, they would call that an eye. That's exactly how they referred to things. They used things that they could define everything through. And it's confused people greatly, because people will read a lot of the sacred texts and think that, hey, this is exactly what it means. And they read it as a story, instead of kind of looking deeper and trying to go within the author's perception, trying to say, hey, this person wasn't there, they didn't know anything about advanced technology, and they're explaining it from a very different angle, from their level of understanding. And that's what these books and scripts are all about. They're about this greater advanced information that's being confined and defined by a very low-based understanding for mankind here at the time that it was given. But if you go back, you could see that everything is really very similar. It's just different explanations. And a lot of these beings that came here used avatars. We've had many avatars being used. We have Lord Krishna. We had the man Yeshua, Jesus. They're two very good examples of avatars being used to be able to get this information out into the world, so that mankind could advance and therefore understand the universe a little bit better. And what I'm here to do is the same. I'm using this body as an avatar so that I can bring the information to everyone, and I'm trying to do it just as they did, using things that are understandable and able to give you all a definition of something that you may not yet understand or be able to perceive, really. And if you do, that's wonderful. And I'm happy for you, and I'm glad, because that's exactly what the point and purpose of all of this is. But for some of you that don't understand, and you're listening to what I'm saying, and you may not, resonate with that, that's okay too. You don't ever have to go along with what I say. If you're not ready, you're not ready. If you disagree, you disagree. I'm not like the other spiritual leaders that try to really enforce my view. The information is here for you to use it, and if you don't want to use it, you don't have to either. But this is the third part in my series for the sacred teachings. I went over the first book of Adam and Eve, and it was a little bit here and there because it's more of a complicated book to really explain in the allotted time that I have. But I hope that this video will be much better, because I'm going to go over the concept of the universe with you based on the information that was brought here to Earth. I'm going to interpret it for you from my experience back home. So Let's start with Vishnu and Krishna. We know that Krishna came here as an avatar to explain the universe as best he could to the people back then. And if you recall, if you've ever read anything in Hinduism, is that Vishnu, had this giant web that spread out throughout existence. And that is what is called the Akasha, because the Akasha is the light energy that everything kind of operates on, and it stems out like that tree of life that you hear in the ancient Kabbalistic teachings. It looks like a tree. And in some of my other videos, which I was kind of like preparing you for all of this, I was saying that here on Earth, we're just very, very small. We're very, very minuscule. And when you go out further into space, which no human has really been able to do with their technology, as you get further and further, everything becomes smaller and smaller. And that's when you can actually start to see the universe as like a stemmy looking energy or tree. And that's the tree of life, because within that energy, within that stem is the life. It's every life form and spiritual essence in existence. So that is what they're talking about. And I know that many others out there that may practice Hinduism might disagree with me, but I've always looked at the many arms of the deities in Hinduism to kind of represent that tree. You know, the many different directions that it goes off into, and having power and dominion over them as a deity. But there's so many other things involved, and the closest thing that I have ever found to really describe what I have seen is the Book of Enoch. And I'm not talking about the Ethiopian text, I'm talking about the secrets of the Book of Enoch. And this really describes the universe. And if you compare it with the Buddhism explanations of the universe, you'll see that they're very, very similar. They're just kind of compiled differently. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to compare the two, because that will give you an understanding, as much as you can understand, about something that's really not conceivable at all if you think about it. It's just so great and so beyond any kind of human comprehension ever, this whole concept of the universe. And it's such a beautiful thing too, because we live in something that cannot be defined by any words. It's just an existence. It's just the I am. And it's a beautiful thing to be a part of that. So that's why I'm using the Book of Enoch for this video, because I feel that it really does explain the universe, and it goes along and coincides with the Buddhism theory of the universe as well. And comparing it to other texts, they have a lot of similarities, and it gives you an idea. So we can never fully define the universe, but we can get an idea of what the universe is like and what it's about. So I'm going to be going over my notes to be able to kind of give you everything that you need here to give you better and greater understanding about this. So I'm going into the secret books of Enoch. And what happened with Enoch is that he was, you know, kind of resting, and he started having this vision, and he was given a message by his higher self that it was time to find out the truth, to gain that enlightenment. So he knew he was going to be projecting into that reality, and he told his children, hey, look, you know, my consciousness is going to be in a different state. This has never happened to me before, so you need to look after me, watch over me. And this is in chapter 3 that this is happening, if you want to ever look it up for yourself. And after that, his children do. They sit there and they watch over him this entire time that this entire ordeal is happening. And at that time, his higher self and his guides come, the guardian angels come, and they take him and they bring him up, and they're taking his etheric body all the way up through this atmosphere of Earth and into space. So when we get into the next chapter of the book, it starts to go into that a little bit more in detail. And he's saying that, as soon as he got up there, he was brought before the face of the elders and the rulers of the stellar orders. And he saw 200 angels who ruled the stars in their services to the heavens. And he says he saw wings, which are etheric extensions. And we'll get into that a little bit more. And as he kind of looks down, he sees what he calls treasure houses of the snow, and that there are angelic beings there taking care of them, and the clouds where they come in and out of. So these treasure houses of the snow. Okay, have you ever looked up in the sky and just kind of seen little tiny clear bubbles floating around out there? And a lot of doctors will like to say, oh, those are floaters in your eyes. But that's not true. You're actually getting a perception of the metaphysical when you see that. These are souls, they're beings. And that's what Enoch's talking about. Now, he's not looking at it from the perspective you would see it. He's seeing these orbs, these balls and energies of light from above them, kind of looking down. And it looks like snow because, like I said, as you get further out, everything looks much smaller. So he sees the little orbs, these little spectacles, and he knows that there are beings that are residing around them to kind of have them make up their being and their essence to care for them, to be the dominion over them. And now what's going to happen with Enoch is that he's going to end up seeing a lot more than just that. As he moves forward, he comes up a little bit further and he starts to see a treasure house, and he compares this to dew, like oil of olive, the appearance of its form as all of the flowers of the earth. And further, angels are guarding those things. So what he's talking about, the oil of olive, have you ever seen little drops of oil, maybe when you're cooking and you can see when you get oil in water, it's like little bubbles. So he's going up beyond the atmosphere. And now he's not just seeing these orbs of light in the sky, these invisible orbs, but he's also seeing the particles of light that are within the air. And that's why he calls them like olive oil, because they're golden and they sparkle. And that's so beautiful. I think it really is. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So Enoch, he says that he continues to go up a little bit higher, and he calls this the second heaven. So we know that he's in this darkness, he says. And this is chapter 7. And he's in this darkness. And he says it's greater than any earthly darkness. And he sees prisoners hanging, watched, awaiting a great boundless judgment. And they were dark, looking more than earthly darkness, and incessantly making weeping all through the hours. So, have you ever heard of cymatics? Cymatics is the sounds of planets, stars. Everything has its own vibration, and that vibration produces a sound. And I believe if you go on YouTube, you can type in the sound of Saturn, or the sound of the sun, the sound of the earth, and you can actually hear that vibration and that sound. And what he's talking about here, he says, in the second heaven, a darkness greater than any earthly darkness. Prisoners hanging, very dark, waiting a boundless judgment, and they're weeping all of the hours. These dark things that he's seeing are black holes, and the weeping that he's hearing is that vibration. And the reason why he likens it to a weeping is because it's a lower vibration. You have the higher pitched sounds up in space from stars that are just very high frequency and buzzing, but the black holes are very, very dense, and they're more of like a sound. And he likens that to somebody that's being very melancholy and very sad. And he explains it that way because it's the only way that he knows how. He's never seen outer space before, and it's very confusing. So he has to have something to compare it to. And then he says to the other beings, who are these? And they tell him that they did not obey the command of the Creator and took counsel with their own will and turned away. So what he means by that is the black holes used to be a star. The stars burn because of the Creator making it too. And so when they, blew up and no longer became a star, they did that supernova. He likens that to being disobeying the Creator because they're no longer shining. And he says that he felt really sorry. And he said that as he passed by, he felt inclined to pray for them. And he says, well, who am I to pray for them? Because, this is all a part of the Creator's will. He says, who am I? What will befall me and who will pray for me? That's because he knows that this is out of his control. This has everything to do with the order of the heavens. And he goes up to the third heaven. And he's placed there, and he kind of looks down again just to see everything from that view, that angle. And he says he's never seen anything such as before. And he sees a sweet flowering tree with much fruit and sweet smelling. And in the midst of the trees of life is where the Creator rests and goes up into the paradise. And it's such a goodness and adorned with every existing thing. And its form is golden looking and fire-like and covers all and produces all fruits. Its root is the garden at the earth's end. And the paradise is between corruptibility and incorruptibility. So I hope you know what he's talking about here. He's saying it's like a tree where the Creator rests, and it's like a paradise, and it comes down to the earth's end, and it's corruptible but incorruptible. What he's talking about is the Milky Way, guys. He's explaining it because it's like a spiral, like a tree. It's got branches, arms, and that's how he's explaining it. He says everything in existence is therein. He's talking about the many life forms, not just humans or any life form like that, but he's also talking about the stars that are considered to be life. Why? Because energy is light. Light is consciousness. Consciousness thinks, it feels, it is in essence, it is a being, and it will always be there. But with stars, they can have a supernova just like those black holes, which he considered to be like a disobeying of the order. So he's describing the Milky Way. He's seeing it, and he says that the Creator rests upon it. And what he means by that is that glow, that heavenly glow that you see when you look at the Milky Way. It's just filled with all of this white light and sparkles of light from the stars. And it's just a very powerful thing to be looking at firsthand as he's up there. And to him, it's awe-inspiring because he's just a little soul essence. He's out of his body, he's projecting, and he's like yay big, and he sees this massive form floating out in the middle of a darkness that's just like there, and he doesn't understand how it is there, but he knows that there's some kind of an order going on. And the Creator and the beings that are with him know that he's just questioning inside, what is all of this that I'm seeing? So he says that he sees two springs come out which send forth honey and milk, and others that send forth oil and wine, and they separate into 4 parts and go around with a quiet course. So he's definitely talking about the Milky Way. He's talking about the different color of the gases that he's seeing in the Milky Way. Let's see, he says that he sees honey, which is like a golden color of the stardust. He sees milk, which is like that dusty white layer of light. And then he says he sees the oil and wine. The oil is like the little drops of golden light, which are the stars. And the wine, it's like that purpley color that we always see in the Milky Way. And he says they separate into the 4 parts. And he's showing you that he's seeing these different arms kind of going off into the corner there. And it goes on a quiet course, meaning it's spinning and it's not making any sound except for its vibration, of course. So it's incorruptible because it's made the way that it's made by the Creator, but it's also corruptible because those stars can have the supernovas, they can burn out, and there's meteorites coming through. So it's going both ways here. It cannot be touched unless it is in the divine order for it to be touched. So let's continue on. We have him saying here that there is no unfruitful tree and every place is best. It goes forth along the earth in a revolution to the circle, even as the other elements. So no unfruitful tree. Every place is blessed. So thanks to the government, we were never able to understand that there are other life forms out there. He's saying it right here, and that's why this book was never included in the Holy Scriptures, because it's a direct acknowledgement that there is life out there. He's saying it. He's saying it's blessed. Every place is blessed. No unfruitful tree. He's saying that every single place that's able to sustain life has life. And he's also talking about the light, because everything is full of light. The stars and the Milky Way galaxy itself is just teeming with light. So he likens this to being blessed, of everything having this consciousness all over it. Okay, so now he says that there are 300 angels very bright who keep this garden, because he calls it a garden. And sweet singing, never silent, to the Creator, all days and hours. And he says, wow, this is a sweet place. And he's like very awe-stricken. He just can't comprehend it really. But it's like a little garden, because there's so much different life in there. And the angels that he's talking about, he's saying they are like, they're like beings that are building up this universe, this portion of the universe, this Milky Way, with their consciousness, with their forms of consciousness. Because we know that as Source breathed out, everything kind of came into existence. Different beings and souls then had their identities. We've always existed as a part of Source, but it was when Source blew out, or the Big Bang, or however you want to describe this event, it was then that the particles broke away from Source, and it became different identities and different souls. And those souls too were able to break down into particles to become many more souls. And that's where we get the genealogy of creation, like in my readings. So he's talking about this beautiful garden and all of these beings that are making up this garden, all of those angels that are the essence of the stars. They're the orbs, those larger orbs of light. If you've ever sat in your home and maybe out of the corner of your eye seen like a little orb zip by, or a little sparkle just appear out of nowhere in the air, that was a soul. And just the same as that, just a little tiny essence of energy. Angels are greater forms and essence of energy. And some of those forms, those stars, are many angels, many souls kind of working together as a collective consciousness to fuel the part of the universe that they were placed over. And they tell him, those beings with Enoch, they tell him this is a place prepared for the righteous and all who manner of offense from those that exasperate their souls and avert their eyes from iniquity and make righteous judgment and help the poor and, raise up the fallen and walk without fault. There's a place prepared for them that is eternal. So they're explaining to him that this body is nothing. If a person has lived by their divine order, just like everything else in existence lives by its divine order, if they do so, then they're able to have a place there in the celestial somewhere permanently, to become a part of the celestial body, to make up the kingdom of that heaven right there. And so they led him to the northern side, and they show him a little bit of a scary place. And he says that this is a place of torture. He likens it to, because it's dark, and there's a very absence of light, and a murky fire constantly flaming aloft, and a fiery river coming forth. And the whole place is everywhere fire, and everywhere there's frost and ice and thirst and shivering, while the bonds are cool. And he says that the beings there are fearful and merciless, And he says that they bear angry weapons. He says, wow, this place is really horrible. And the beings tell him this is a place for those that dishonor the Creator, who practice terrible things, corrupting people, doing all kinds of devilish things. When they talk about devilish witchcraft, they're talking about any kind of magic or energy work that's used to harm others. Because we know that energy work is not wrong if it's being used to benefit the celestials. So he's saying that this is a place of void. It's like he's comparing it to like the absence of light, because in this place it's like an asteroid and it has the fire behind it, but there's no light on it, and it's very cold. So he's talking about an asteroid, and he likens this to being like a place of punishment for souls, because hey, the stars have some kind of rocky mass, but there's soul energy all over it. There's fire and stars all over it. But here is this mass of rock that has no light, and he thinks that this is where, souls are kind of put and banished when they have no purpose. So they're basically saying that this is what will happen to certain souls that don't live out by their divine order. They'll have like a supernova, or their light will just dim out and they'll just be a floating nothing. And that's a shame, but it is true, because there's a beginning and an end for a lot of things. But when there is an end, there's always a new beginning elsewhere. So Source is always expressing itself. If it's not through one thing, it's another. So it's a very beautiful way to interpret what Enoch is seeing so far. So I don't want to overwhelm you all too very much with this. It's a lot of information to go on. So we'll stop there and we'll continue in the next video. I just want you to understand the universe and really see it within your mind as we're getting to it, because we're going to start going out even farther into Enoch's vision of being beyond the universe, because he's going to go beyond it. And you can liken this to all of the scriptures out there that they have in many different religions, because they're all talking about it in some kind of way. We have, in Buddhism, he talks about the 4 states of unhappiness, the subhuman realms, which are like the hells, animal life, ghost worlds, demon worlds. He talks about the human worlds, which is like the one physical plane. He talks about the heavenly realms. There are 6 of those. The realms of the fine material forms, there are 16 realms of the fine material forms, which is like light bodies, different places for different light bodies. And then the formless realms, which is what we just actually covered when we were reading about Enoch's vision, about that place of void, that asteroid type of thing that he's explaining. But to him, it's an entire environment, because yet again, he's just this much of an energy body in this great vast universe that he's traveling through astrally or etherically, seeing it. So it's a very dark, dim place with nothing. And he says that this is where that imprint of souls that once existed go, but they no longer have the light to continue to shine there. All right, so we're going to go in deeper. If you guys want to read up, check it out. I'll put the link in the description so that you can read for yourselves and understand this, and maybe go a little bit ahead so that we'll be prepared. I know that these aren't like my typical videos. I do like little videos, and they're very plain and simple and put into layman's terms for everyone to understand, but I want to get deeper into these things with you. And I have to ask you to forgive me for some of the information in the video I just did about the Illuminati concept. Some of the information towards the end, like about Osama bin Laden's daughter and such, I'm not really sure about the direct relation. I know that she is a relative. I believe she could be a niece, but that was generally what I was getting to. His family is very predominant, and yet if he was a threat to society, a terrorist to society, then why does members of his family have so much privilege? So I just wanted to clear that up with you. And also about the picture where I'm putting Lucifer up and I'm showing you that they compare them with the same name, the morning and the evening star, I'm in no way glorifying any kind of Satanist beliefs or anything like that, because you guys know me. I have too much love and too much joy in my heart to ever go along with anything that's dark or harmful to others. It was just to show you that this world is very big on contradicting itself. You know, they call Yeshua, they call Michael, and they call Lucifer all the evening and the morning star, and it just really doesn't make any sense here. I understand from my perspective from being up there, but I wanted you to see it and understand that the world always presents this information that isn't always doesn't always mean how they're presenting it to you. So I don't condone Satanism. I just want to let you know that. Nobody said anything about it, but I watched the video myself to make sure that things were clear, and I noticed that it could have looked that way. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. I love you guys. I really do. And I know that there's going to be people out there that don't like me, and that's fine, because that's them. But I'm trying to promote a world of universal love here. And I thank all of you that have been right there with me doing the same all along too. You're all wonderful souls of light, and you deserve the very, very best in your existence and your experience. And I hope that if you ever need me to elaborate on your experience more, that you'll come to me. Go to my website. I'm always happy to do readings and help you figure out more information. And I think it'd be good for you to do so. Get those answers. Understand, try to get a little bit of a definition of your soul. Even though you can't fully ever define it, it's good to have a foundation of understanding so that you know where your place is in this whole entire universal theme. So namaste, and I will see you all in the next video, continuing on with the secrets of Enoch.